The story of Home Depot is a fascinating one. It's a story about entrepreneurship and how you start from nothing to end up with something. We were a small business getting off the ground, and let me tell you, that was brutal. In those years, the government wasn't your enemy. But over the years, these people in Congress who don't have a clue what the hell they're doing throw more regulations out, and administrations throw more out. It's always for the big guy, and a small guy gets screwed. And that's why 10 years ago, I thought about starting an organization to represent that small guy, because I never forget those early days. How do we recreate that? And that's what Job Creators was all about. When we talk to you about supporting Job Creators Network, I think you're paying forward, because believe me, this government today wants to tax you to death. So even if you're not a small business, but a big business, you need to support this effort because it works for everybody's behalf. I'd like each one of you to step forward and do your bit and help Job Creators Network continue their work. If you walk out of this room today with one thing in mind, is that here's something that can help our civilization get better, help America become stronger, and that's Job Creators Network.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker, the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation.
And I'm Alfredo Ortiz, CEO of Job Creators Network.
And you can subscribe to the show at salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. Today, we are so excited. It is our 100th episode, and we are having with us Bernie Marcus, the co-founder of the Home Depot and the founder of Job Creators Network. We've appreciated Bernie's support over the last 10 years, supporting everything we've done to support small businesses and speak out and give them a voice in Washington, D.C. It's given us the opportunity to tell lawmakers in Washington exactly what they need, and we couldn't have done it without you, Bernie Marcus. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, I was wondering if you could talk about your background. Most people probably assume you've been a wealthy, rich guy your whole life, living the good life. I think you should tell people exactly where you came from.
Well, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, in a tenement, fourth floor walk up with my parents, who were immigrants from Ukraine, who spoke no English. My father was a carpenter. He was a damn good carpenter, a lousy businessman. But they came here because they wanted a good life for their kid. They were running away from anti-Semitism in the Ukraine, and they didn't want that for their children. I had two brothers and a sister, and they came for freedom. They came for the right reason, and they taught us right from the beginning that this is America, the golden land. My mother used to call it in Yiddish, the golden land, and they believed it. And they wanted to be here, and they wanted to be citizens for the right reason. They saw what the other world looks like: socialism, communism, oppression, lack of freedom, and that's not what they wanted for their children. And it was a hard journey getting here. It took my father 8 years to make that trip, along with the rest of his family, and my mother likewise. So they didn't cross a border illegally. They came here through the hard way, the real way, and the honest way, and they came here to learn the language, to be American citizens. That was the key. And I'm so happy they did it. But we were poor. We had nothing. We had nothing. My father didn't bring home money, we didn't eat. It was as simple as that. Spaghetti was a staple. Chicken soup was a staple. And we rarely saw meat or anything like that. I didn't know it. I was a kid. I just loved being around other kids like myself. All the kids in the tenement were in the same circumstances. We were all poor. And we thought about, as I would go around Newark, I saw people that lived in houses. And I remember saying to myself, when I grow up, I want to live in a house. I want to have a porch. And I wasn't envious. I just said, how do they do it? How do they manage to get where they are? And that's the story of my life, was how to better myself and not to do it at the expense of somebody. In other words, envious. And I think that a lot of the hysteria that's going around today is because people are envious of what other people have. Because other people are willing to break their asses and get where they want. And that takes work. And it's much easier to sprout philosophy and crap than work. And so I was brought up the right way, and I think that that was a major part of who I am today. I never forget where I came from, and I think that's important. And a lot of the kids today who are living the golden life, who don't appreciate it, who are living the benefits of capitalism, don't really understand that they have everything they want. They're spoiled brats. They didn't work for it. Their parents did. And in many cases, the parents did a terrible job by not letting these people know what their life is like. That's not the case in my family. I shared my travails and all the things I went through, not as a, they took this away from me, they took that away from me. That was never it. It was always that there was an opportunity, and I knew I was going to one day be successful. Success to me was earning $25,000 a year. That was the ultimate. I said, if I reach the goal of making $25,000 a year, I'm going to be set for the rest of my life. And that's my original goal. And
you passed that a little bit.
I somehow made it. But, it wasn't an easy life. And I understand what being poor is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, Bernie, because you and I have had this conversation about the American dream. As you recall, my family, my mom was a housekeeper, my dad was a tailor. I was born in Chula Vista, they were born in Mexico, so they were legal immigrants that came over as well. So we share I would say, a little bit of that American dream story. My family was poor as well. And it's funny when you think about the pursuit of that American dream and how it's made me, how it's made you. It's funny, I would say that parents as of today have kind of forgotten that is probably the best way to teach their kids some of that hard life, to know what it is to earn a dollar, right? To actually work hard. And your entire family story and your story really embodies that. I know something that you've told us in the past, which I don't think many people are aware of, is that you actually had a quick stint as a stand-up comic, if I remember.
I did.
Growing up. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I love this story.
It's not anything. There's nothing I didn't do. I put up pins in bowling alleys. I worked as a soda jerker. Yeah. I cleaned toilets. I don't think there's a job. I was a waiter. I was a comedian. I was a MC on the stage. I can't think of anything I didn't do.
Yeah.
I worked in the circus. I mean, I did things that, when I think back, I say, how the hell did you do all those things?
Yeah.
How did I get to those places? New Jersey, I had to walk to everything.
Yeah.
We didn't have a car. We had public transportation. But all of those things I did, I found to be fascinating.
Yeah.
And became part of my character,
Yeah.
who I am, and I attribute it to it. You know, Ken Langone, I think a lot of people know Ken. We had lunch the other day, and we came to the conclusion that we were unique. His father was a plumber, also barely made a living. And we talked about the fact that we have not forgotten who we are and where we came from. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's what Job Creator Network was all about, because I remember being a small businessman and having all the issues that small business people have, and began to think about nobody representing these people, and that somebody had to be out there doing the work that you do now at Job Creators Network, which is to represent them and get equal treatment from the federal government in taxes and regulations and all those things that happen. And it's only because I lived that period of being a small businessman. Yeah. And I remember the government being on my neck constantly, but nothing like it is today. Right. I mean, they're strangling small businesses today with regulations, and there's nobody fighting for these young people or these people. And so you're doing a great job representing them, and I support what you've done. I think you've been very successful. I think you've achieved something in Washington which very few people have. Thank you. And you think about the tax cut, the Trump tax cut. Right. You played a major role. When they were talking about cutting taxes, nobody talked about the small business. Right. Nobody cared about them.
Yep, that's true.
And you brought it out, and you changed the narrative, and all of a sudden, all of these politicians started talking about the small business. We got to take care of small business. Right. And you got them included in this tax bill. Yeah. And you kept alive, I don't know how many businesses, by what you did, and the fact that they got relief in taxes. And I remember the fight because I was there with you. Yeah. And I made many calls for you, yeah, and with you. And it was like going up against a stone wall. Oh, yeah. But you did it, yeah, and you were successful with it, among all the other things. So you represent all these people, these small businesses, and nobody else represents them. Yeah. It's very simple. When a bill comes through Congress, you have these paid assassins. What do they call them?
Lobbyists.
The litigators.
Lobbyists
the lobbyists who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, millions a year, representing the big companies. And they don't care about the pizza guy, yeah, the cleaner, the laundromat, the doctor, all these small people. No one gives a crap about them. And the lobbyists certainly don't. But every day of your life, you and Elaine, you're working for their benefit. Even today, you're on issues that are going to affect how they're going to survive, even in this terrible economy. Right. Awful. I can't think of words to tell you. I'm 94 years old. I have lived through administration And man, I wake up every morning and say, what the hell are these dunces in Washington do today to destroy America, to kill off people, to kill off not only small business, but big business. And damned if I don't wake up in the morning. I just did this morning. I woke up, I'm depressed by what I see in the news.
Yeah.
And the effect of socialism on young people, that's scary because it tells me that the future, and Alfredo, you told me a story of 29-year-olds that 51% believe in socialism.
Right.
Where did that crap come from?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And meanwhile, they're going to school paying $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. Where the hell is that money coming from?
Right.
Most of them are on scholarship, which are paid by capitalists.
Right.
So it's like biting the hand that feeds you. What in the hell is going on?
Yeah, yeah. Or the student loans that, I mean, as you know, we fought that all with the Supreme Court. The $450 billion bailout that Joe Biden was trying to do. You know, we fought that all with the Supreme Court and we stopped him, at least for now. But now he's spent, what, $160 billion so far? $160 billion. Forgiving loans?
Yeah, why should a guy who runs a pizzeria pay for a spoiled brat to go to Harvard or Yale and pay taxes to let this guy go to a university like that and trash the economy and trash the government and trash the way of life and trash capitalism? The thing that got him through. It's nuts.
Yeah. Well, and I think the worst part about it is you have these unaccountable universities that are basically getting a blank check to be able to keep increasing these tuitions and having the taxpayers pay for it when they're sitting on, what, $800 billion of endowments?
Oh, yeah.
We should start taxing the endowments.
You look at Harvard. Harvard's the biggest bank in the world, has more money than some countries, and keep collecting it and keep raising their tuition. And we, the idiots in the government and paying taxes, we're paying for it. Look, I remember when I went to college, it was $2,000 a year. I earned my money. I paid my money. Nobody helped me. There was nobody to help me. But I managed to get through. And so, but the university kept raising money, building bigger football fields, paying their coaches $8-9 million a year. And we, the taxpayer, pay for it. And the poor plumber who breaks his ass every day, going to houses under floorboards, he's paying for these spoiled brats to have an education. It's awful.
Well, you went to a much higher end college than my father. He went to LSU and it was $30 a semester.
30. He beat me. He was way ahead of me. Mine was $2,000.
You went to a fancy one.
You went to a fancy college.
A year. So, no, it's hard. The more you give them, the less they appreciate it. And they want more. Give me, buy me, do me.
Yeah.
It's pretty disgusting.
Well, I think that kind of picks up on what I was going to ask you about next, and that's your love of America, that you talk about. I have heard you talk about your love of America so often. I think it's in almost every speech that you've ever given. And nowadays, it seems like the younger generations are growing up with a disdain for America. And we've got politicians in Washington who clearly have a disdain for America. How do you describe America and what makes it different and exceptional?
America's been good to me. I love this country. When I hear the Star Spangled Banner, I still get ripples down my back. I love this country, and I'm sorry to see it slowly but surely descend. When you have members of Congress, as you said, Elaine, who are now anti-American, it's frightening. It's frightening. If the American people don't wake up, they don't wake up and start voting with their heads, they're going to end up like Venezuela or like Cuba or like communist China or Russia, where they don't have the freedoms that we have here. And people take advantage of it. We should love the fact that we have freedom. I love freedom of speech. I don't like violence. I don't like intimidation. I don't like people threatening other people. That's not freedom of speech.
Right.
That's violence, it's fascism. And that's what you have, fascism. I saw fascism when I grew up. We had it in America. I remember in the 50s, not 1850, 1950s, we had the Bund here in America.
Yeah.
And they did the same kind of bullshit that they're doing today. And they got slapped down. In our city in Newark, we had young Jewish guys who would beat the crap out of them, literally beat the crap out of them. Here you have policemen that are intimidated, being attacked by them,
Right.
and they throw them in jail for overnight, and that's it. In the 50s, they used billy clubs. They used to buy one shot on the head. That's the last time you hear it from them. They would not open their mouths again. I'm not saying got to go back to a country like that, but for crying out loud, being too free is not good either.
Right.
You can't allow people to run around doing that. Meanwhile, we have a government that keeps putting regulations in. We have an environment where the cost of living is almost too much for some people. They have to make a choice between gas for their truck or food for their family. And you never want to get at that point, and you're at it now.
Right.
People can't afford living in houses.
Yep.
They can't afford to buy a house. If they rent, they can't afford the rise in rent.
Right.
It's insurance. It's everything.
Groceries, gas.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything went up
Yeah.
because of this dunce's policies about energy. And so it affects everybody. And I don't know what the people in Washington, don't they see this? You wonder, where the hell are they? Are they so isolated inside the White House that they don't see this? Or some of the congressmen.
Yeah.
I mean, they're supposed to live in their communities. Don't they see the pain that the constituents are going through? And evidently, they see it, but they buy into it.
Yeah.
Because it's a party line, and they buy the party line rather than the independence that people want them to have. So it's not good. But your job is the same job you did. I think about COVID. When COVID came down, I think about the role. You know, people were laying off people,
Yeah.
and the government wanted to help keep people employed,
Right.
and they wanted to do it through the
Paycheck Protection
The-
Program.
business administration.
Oh, the Small Business Administration. Yes.
That's where they wanted to
That's
distribute
right.
the money.
Yeah.
And I remember the fight that you had, you and
Yeah.
Elaine and myself.
Yep. We were on the phone with Mnuchin.
Oh,
Secretary
yeah,
Mnuchin.
yeah.
I remember that Sunday afternoon.
And we all worked with them to tell them, don't go to small business because they'll never see the money.
Yeah.
It would take 2 years.
We finally convinced him to go to the commercial banks as well.
Go to commercial banks, and people have money right away. A small guy who runs a pizza joint, he doesn't have cash flow. He's got to go from week to week. So he couldn't keep his employees on. He would have to let them go. And that was a fight that we all went through. Job Creators Network played a major role in that. Major.
Yeah, I do remember that one well.
I remember me talking to Mnuchin,
Yeah.
and he said, the banks, well, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Remember, he gave us 24 hours to turn around a proposal of how to get the banks involved.
Yeah, and you did it.
Yeah.
You came up with you changed. Many businesses are in business today because of the work that you did.
Well, unfortunately, we were able to tap into the community banks, which are such a lifeblood to our small businesses, which, by the way, now are getting hurt so badly with the high interest rates because of inflation.
Yeah. Everybody's getting killed with inflation.
Yeah.
So, what do you want? You want a government with less money, less control. You want smaller government.
Right.
If you look at how many people were hired last year, like 40 or 50% were government employees.
50%, that's right.
What kind of crap is that?
Yeah.
That doesn't show that people are employed.
Yeah.
They weren't opening up stores. They weren't opening up businesses. And the small business guys, they're hanging on by their teeth right now. And we have the next problem coming up, and that is the Trump tax cut that is expiring. And if they take that away, how many small businesses you think are going to survive? Yeah. It's going to affect a tremendous amount. And a lot of people are going to be laid off. And these guys will go out and they'll rally and the Bidenomics and all the crap that comes out of their mouth. But they're going to kill Main Street. Yeah. And not only that, I think about it. During the night, I got up, couldn't sleep, and I thought about how do you make a pizza with electric ovens?
We were actually just talking about that the other day. Or imagine this, a Chinese restaurant with an electric wok.
Yeah, or any restaurant.
It's just,
you go in a restaurant, they all have to have the fire in order to get and they're going to cut that out? Yeah. My God.
I was just at a restaurant the other day, and I told them, they were like bragging about their wood-fired pizzas and their wood-fired dishes. And I said, well, that ain't going to last too much longer because you're going to have electric ovens in there. And they're like, what? They had no clue.
They don't, and they're voting.
Right, exactly.
They're voting against themselves.
Yeah.
How stupid they are.
Yeah. She was like, I have no idea.
Some of them work too hard and don't pay enough attention to what government is doing. Yeah. And boy, you better watch government. They're sneaky.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know this is an issue that you've been talking a lot about in terms of like the EV push and a lot of the regulations on energy.
Yeah, your thoughts on the EV push? I mean, the administration, President Biden, he can't really talk about his economic record. He doesn't even use the word Bidenomics anymore. Remember that. But what they are talking about is climate change and abortion, and they really try to avoid talking about things like GDP and inflation and how small business owners are faring. Last week he promised that he was going to let the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expire if he gets reelected. That's his campaign promise. Imagine running on that. I'm going to raise all the small business owners' taxes if you reelect me. I mean, that should be in a commercial, don't you think?
Well, why do people vote for him? Why do people support it? I mean, are they stupid or what? I always had faith. As I went through my years, and I went through administration to administration, Democrat, Republican, I always had this belief that the American people were smart enough at one point to get rid of the bad guys. I'm beginning to lose that faith.
I don't think you should, Bernie. I don't think you should lose that faith, because when they're given the information, when they're educated, when they get that information, they do the right thing by their own pocketbooks, by their own family values. The problem is we have a media that doesn't report fairly. That is part of the problem, is they don't report the information to the American people.
Well, you can't get CNN to say the right thing. No. They're all run by students who grew up under professors who hate capitalism.
Right.
And so they take it into their reporting. You go to these newsrooms, they're all young kids, and they're the spoiled brats I'm talking about.
No.
And they don't write this stuff. I mean, I hear some of the commentators, and I honestly don't believe what I hear. I just, again, being here for 94 years and seeing, I wake up every day and say, what is going on?
Yeah. But you know, Elaine, to your point, and I think, Bernie, you said this from day one, which is why you created Job Creators Network, or one of the big reasons, is you got to educate our small businesses to be able to educate their employees, right? If we go back and think 33 million small businesses that employ 60 million people, that's 93 million people, right? That they can get that message directly. And the small business owners are now the most trusted institution in this country, ahead of the military, ahead of the churches, definitely ahead of Congress and the media. So using these small business owners and leveraging their voices has been so important.
This podcast, I hope, gets to the guy that runs the pizza place. I hope he gets to see it. The problem is he's watching TikTok or one of these other disastrous social media places, which is a sounding board for communists and authoritarians and people that hate democracy. And if you can get to them, and I think this is a good way to get to them, I'd like to say to all the small businesses, be smart. Right. Understand how this is affecting your very lifestyle, your very lifeline. I'm worried about my employees now. Right. Good God, I'm worried that something happens, they can't afford to pay for it because they don't, their wages, even though we raise their wages over and over again, inflation is corrosive. Yeah. And it's a killer because it builds on each other. Right. So when Biden says, well, inflation's only up 3.5%, well, idiot. It's 3.5 on top of 5, on top of 4.
The price levels are still doing this.
It keeps going up.
Right.
And so somehow we job creators, we got to get the message out to as many people as possible and make them a fighting force. If they realize how much power they have, they can rid Congress of all these nuts, these nuts that really are in Congress, and throw them the hell out where they belong on the street. But you hear over and over again, I'm too busy. I'm working too hard. Right. Well, of course you're going to work hard. Right. And then when they raise the taxes, you're going to work harder. And when they put in things like not using gas, you're going to work even harder. Right. And as fuel costs go up and the price of commodities go up, you're going to be stuck there by, for a slice of pizza is $5 now. Yeah. If it keeps going this way, it'll be $15.
And when you think about some of the regulations, like back to the EV, on truckers, for example.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the mandates, for example, in California that I'm hearing, you've heard truckers right now that are saying that electric cab that they're going to have to buy is $300,000 more than what they have to currently buy a combustion engine. They're saying we're just going to walk away. People are actually predicting now food shortages because there's no more long haul. right? Because you can only go 200 miles at a piece, so there's no more long haul routes. Imagine perishable goods.
So how come you understand that, and I understand that, and the vote is that close? The polls should be 40%,
Right.
and it's not. I'm not supporting a candidate because he's of his personality.
Right.
I'm supporting what they can do. I know that 4 years ago life was easier.
Yeah.
People were making more money. More people were working. And it's not the same way today. And it's 4 years of energy policy. One of the stupidest, dumbest, most moronic things that have come down the pike is, worrying about climate change, which could happen over a period of 30 years. You could do things over a period of 30 years, but over 1 year or 2 years,
Right.
it's too dramatic. And people, that causes a great deal of suffering. And these people in Congress and in control don't understand that.
Right.
And they make promises that are not true, like bringing more IRS people in.
Yeah.
They're not going to affect me. I pay all the taxes, legal, I could tell you, down to being, black and white. Well, a guy who runs a pizza place, they're going to go after him.
100%.
Guaranteed, and they are.
Yep.
They are doing the small people. And small businesses are going to get killed by the IRS.
Oh, yeah. I had to chuckle the other day talking about regulations and how they disproportionately hurt our small business owners, whether it's the energy or minimum wage mandates. The newest mandate coming out of regulation coming out of the Biden administration, you're going to love this, Bernie, is to punish employers who don't use the correct pronouns for their employees or allow them to use the bathroom of their choice on how they identify.
Very important for business.
So while our small businesses are struggling under inflation and high energy costs, the Biden administration is worried about pronouns.
Yeah, put another bathroom in. So you take a guy that barely makes a living and is struggling to stay alive, and you tell him he's got to put another bathroom in.
You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. And it gets dumber by the day. It's as though they wake up every morning, they take a dumb pill, and there's no antidote.
Yeah.
You just get dumber and dumber every day. I think they take dumb pills. I really do. Nobody could be that stupid.
Right.
But they are. And they don't realize, when I heard this thing about not using gas, which is cheap, by the way, for climate change, it is the safest, it's the best, and trying to cut that out,
Makes no sense.
What are they thinking about?
So Ford just issued in their earnings, announced that they're losing $130,000 per EV truck.
Good. I hope they lose 300,000 because they've been promoted by the government to produce these things that people don't want to buy. People are not stupid. They're not going to buy a truck, pay 3 times the amount of money, and then have the truck go half the distance.
Right.
You can't make a truck go transcontinental.
Yep.
Can't go from California to New York.
Yep.
Where the hell are you charge the battery?
Yeah.
You don't.
Yep.
And so they're going to not make a living. I don't know where's this all going.
Yeah.
What's the ultimate plan? What idiot is sitting back and strategize? I know that as running a Home Depot, owning a business, we had a strategy. We knew where we wanted to go a year from now, 2 years, 5 years. What idiot is sitting down and figuring how to slowly erode the economy of this country? Who benefits?
Right.
Government benefits.
Right.
It makes them more powerful. And you end up with what you call dictatorships, which is where you are now.
So maybe Bernie, it's not that they're that dumb, maybe they're that smart, devious, right? To literally break down the entire U.S. economy to make it more socialist.
That's what they're doing.
I mean, it's clear now that their plan is to make it a socialist country.
I believe that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be.
So it's very sad. And that's why Job Creators Network is so important. Alfredo, I wish you health, and you, Elaine, and all the people out there breaking your backs, trying to make this a better world for the small businessman. But in fact, you are affecting the large business guy also. And you're trying to bring some sanity to a Congress and administration that's insane.
Yeah, it really
So you're trying to bring some semblance of intelligence, whatever that word means to them. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Now, Bernie, I'd love to switch gears in here a little quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, get into something nice.
Well, because something you and I love to chat about, the Hispanic American. Something that I love your perspective on the Hispanic American. Years and years ago, you described them as something, which I'll let you talk about. But I would love to chat a little bit about that, because huge part of our country now is Hispanic, and a huge part of that's going to be the Hispanic vote in November. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I actually said that I think that the Hispanic voter is the new Jew in America.
Right.
Because the old Jew was the one that opened up the shop in little towns that nobody heard of.
Right.
A little soft goods, selling clothing, selling this or selling that.
Yeah.
And peddlers went from town to town.
Yeah.
They're Jewish.
Right.
And this is what the Hispanics are doing now. They are the backbone of a new economy. Mm-hmm. If we allow them to flourish. Mm-hmm. The key is, don't make it so hard to enter the workforce.
Right.
To open a place.
Yeah.
If you make it so hard, if you have to charge so much for a plate of food that normally would cost $2 or $3, if you now have to charge $15, $20, who could afford it?
Yeah.
Because they're not selling to people like you and I, or people who are, well off. They're selling to people in their own economic staff, and they have to be able to support them. But they are the future, and I just can't wait for them to start running for office.
Yeah.
Start understanding what their power is.
Yeah.
Because they will become a power. They'll be able to get voters to come out and vote. And not only that, they're hardworking. They believe in God. Their families are religious. And they believe that America, like my parents, it's the land of milk and honey.
Right.
That this is where the opportunities are. They believe it, heart and soul. That's why they came here. Yeah. Now, some of the people coming across the border now, that is not what they believe. They're running away from terrorism. Mm-hmm. They're bringing it with them.
Right, right.
And a lot of these are bringing terror into our country, bringing drugs, sex trafficking. I don't get it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's been demonstrated. It's been They have enough evidence that it is happening, and yet we have people in control who just ignore it. So,
why do you think that, Bernie? Why do you think the Democrats, the administration, does not want to close the border and bring in order?
Power. They rather have a way, if I can get control of this person, that makes me more powerful. The key is to win an election. That's the whole key. Yeah. No one gives a crap about anything except winning again and getting 4 more years in power. Yeah. That's what the whole game is all about.
Well, I think it's pretty clear from talking. I had a wonderful weekend out in Arizona talking to small business, Hispanic small business owners, female Hispanic small business owners, clergy, and other folks talking about the issues. And something you said about regulations with Hispanic small business owners is so real. There's a Peruvian woman that was part of the focus groups that I talked to. She was opening up her second Peruvian restaurant, and she told me that it cost her $150,000 to run a water line from the city to her restaurant, which should have been the city's responsibility, but the city said the only way we're going to give you a permit is if you do that, right? So the regulations are not only at local levels, right? It goes all the way up to federal, but it really does go down down to the local levels. This is quite frankly, a very Democrat-leaning area that she was in. And she was so frustrated, Bernie. Listening to her story, she just is so frustrated. She doesn't understand. She goes, why doesn't the government make it easier for me? She goes, I'm employing people.
No, why doesn't she organize the people around her to vote against these assholes and get them out of Congress?
Yeah. And that's what I told her. I said, look, I challenge you to do that. Yeah. You have to get involved, whether it's school boards, whether it's city council, anything, right? But you need to start getting involved. It's not that you can't do anything about it.
No. You have to have a crowd of people.
Right.
Unfortunately, but it's not for you. That's really what democracy is all about. And people have to fight for their rights.
Right.
Listen, I think about how many people would do what happened in this country with the Boston Tea Party. Mm. How many people would be willing to fight in the war, the revolution in this country? Mm-hmm. Right now, we're worried about a war coming up with China, and nobody's enlisting.
Right.
Nobody's enlisting. And so what are we going to fight them with? And Biden's giving away all our ammunition anyway, and to everybody. And meanwhile, our warehouses are empty. If it happens here, we're just not prepared. I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody who's in the submarine force. The biggest problem is the equipment is falling apart. They don't have money for it. I saw that myself when I went around on business executives for national security, and I was on an aircraft carrier, and they showed me helicopters that they were keeping up in the air with rubber bands. I mean, it had no parts. Wow. It's crazy. It's crazy. But meanwhile, everybody comes across the border and gets a cell phone.
Right. Right.
But you can't get a screw or a nut for a helicopter.
Bernie, your vision for starting Job Creators Network, your support and your focus on small business has allowed us for the last 10, 12 years to really help small businesses. And we, like you said, we got the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed. We are one of the loudest voices in Washington, D.C., but we're also out there in Arizona and other states around the country finding out on the ground what small businesses need and want and helping to communicate that to our leaders in Washington. What is your vision for Job Creators Network over the next decade? In our last few minutes together.
I think it's a continuation, but you need more people joining you. Need more voices. You have to recruit top people who understand that the economy is going to be generated by the small guy, and he can be very, very important. But unfortunately, the rich people that control all the money in the country keep thinking big. Run another ad.
Right.
You know, that doesn't work. Support somebody like you. For small businesses, I don't know anybody else out there. Nobody else really gives a damn. But you have to recruit some better people, some more people like myself that can help support your growth. Everything takes money, unfortunately. And if you're going to fight back, you need to have more social media, more exposure, and you have to get to that woman that you talked about to let her know that she's a weapon.
Yep.
She's more powerful than she thinks she is.
Yep.
Where was this place in that?
She was the owner of a Peruvian restaurant in Phoenix.
Well, in Phoenix, she can knock any member of the house out by putting the small businesses together of Hispanics. And she could do it. She's got the power. Got to just get off her ass and work. And it'll pay off for her in her business. And maybe next time they'll put the water line in and pay for it. The next one is the gas line. The next one will be, the sewer system. She's going to get killed year after year, and they're going to make it more expensive because they have to raise money in order to pay for illegal immigrants. Where do you think the money's going to come from? It's going to come from a Peruvian woman that's here trying to break her rear end and make a living. Somebody's got to pay for it. So I don't think people think that money grows on trees. It doesn't. It comes out of the taxpayers. So all I can say is fight back, get bigger, let your voice be heard better. Although you're doing a great job with what you have, I think you got to be better. You have to recruit small businesses that fight alongside of you. There are many people that have the wherewithal to do it. Restaurant owners, some of these, somebody owns 5 restaurants. They have to fight, or they're not going to survive. Or doctors, those small doctor offices, they're getting killed. They got to pay a ton for nurses and for tests and all of those things. They should have enough brains to understand that they have organized and get rid of people that are not on their side. And that's what you have to do. You have to pick sides. And you have to show them that your side is the side of the right, and your side is the side that's going to mean for a better life for everybody. So Job Creators Network is important in the future, as it has been in the past, and more so because if this administration stays in, God forbid, we're going to see more than, not less. And even if a new administration comes in, they need help in trying to solve the problems. Not everybody knows the problems. There's so many regulations. My God, how do you get rid of them? That's a job in itself. Just that. And so bringing sanity to government is your job versus let it continue this insane rush to destroy small businesses. That's your role. And you and Elaine have to have big shoulders and take the beating every day.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great message to leave on, and it's a great final thought. Bernie, again, from the bottom of our heart, we want to thank you for your vision for Job Creators Network. We want to thank you for joining us on our 100th episode of Main Street Matters. And it has been so inspiring to work for you and carry this message for small businesses for this last 10, 12 years. We've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, God bless you.
Thank you, Bernie.
May God give you health, that you continue doing it, and strength, because you're going to need the strength to fight all these insane things every day of your life that you're going to see, because the next year is going to be brutal, more than brutal, because they're going to try to put everything in that they didn't have room for, and we don't even know what's coming down the pike.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So keep your head up, be ready to fight, and knock them on the rear ends.
Will do, Bernie.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernie.